This video covers how to troubleshoot a non-working string of pixels on a HolidayCoro controller. Now, we'll assume in this particular case that we are working from output 36 and we have a string of pixels that, let's just say, is not working. Now, this video is only going to cover from the point of this board back to the pixels. Now, it's important to understand that there are a lot of things that have to work and be configured correctly for everything to work for your pixels to operate. And we are going to start with the furthest most set of pixels. Never presume any particular area is working or not working. Always start with the basics at the very end, which is at the pixel string, and then work further back up. We have additional videos that cover the rest of this process. All right, now we've identified our string. It is output 36 that is not operational, and we've identified that that is these pixels right here. Now the first step we want to do is test using the built-in test mode. Never test using a test mode using your sequence from your application. Or even at this particular point in the testing process, don't use the test mode from the application. You want to test from the controller. And the reason for that is this takes out any possibility that something upstream is the cause. That could be your network, a firewall, a network cable, your computer, the sequencing application, many other things. Now, testing from the controller is not a 100% guarantee that the problem will be resolved using the built-in test mode, but in a vast majority of cases will resolve and test properly. So, the test mode process is varying by particular controller, and in the particular case of this controller being the HinksPix Pro, we press the reset button and we can put the controller into test mode. When we first boot up, it will say right to test lights. Right is this button right here. It is the OK button, and that will put it into test mode. Now, we should be testing the pixels that are attached to the controller. Now, if your configuration on the controller is not right, not completed, then that can indicate a problem unto itself. All right, so you can see that we're in test mode. We're doing red, green, blue, white, black, and you can see that that's exactly what's happening here. Now, when you're testing lights, it's important to understand that if you're testing them, you may get partial results. If the entire string is not working, we likely have a string or something upstream issue. Now, if you have a string of pixels and only part of the lights are not working, such as you have 100 pixels physically connected, but only 50 are lit up, it could be because your application is not configuring the controller to work with all the pixels. You may have it configured to work with 50 pixels. So in any of these cases, if the pixels aren't working, the first step is to take a known good string of pixels and swap them out. Now remember, we were testing on output 36. So let's just say that on another string of the same controller, we had output number 34. And let's just pretend that, again, output 36 was not working and 34 is working. So here's output 34, and let's just pretend that these pixels are working fine. Everything is great, but 36 is not working. What we do is we take the two outputs and we swap them around. So you take the lights from 34, you unplug them, and you take the lights from 36 and you unplug them, and now we take our working strings, in this case bullet nodes, and we plug them into 36. Now, if the problem follows the string of pixels, it is the string. So if we swap the strings, 36 and 34, and the problem follows the string of pixels, in other words, 34 stops working and 36 starts working, the pixels are the root cause of the problem. Again, if the problem follows the pixels, it is the problem with the pixels. That means that there's something wrong with the pixels, they're damaged, dead, shorted, something like that, right? It could also mean that there's an extension cable issue, though that is rare. Now, if the problem does not follow the pixels, in other words, if you were to plug in to output 36, another string of pixels that was known to be working, and it still does not work, the problem is almost surely upstream of the pixels, because we've taken a known good string of pixels and we plugged it into an output for which we didn't know if it was working or not, and it didn't work. And we now have two strings of pixels that don't work on output 36. That would indicate output 36 is the root cause. You have now just split the connection into two parts. Either the pixels are the not working part, or the controller or above is not the working part. All right, so let's move up to the next level. If we did not determine that the pixels were the problem, in other words, we moved them around, the pixels are all fine, we now think that the problem is in the controller itself. What we want to do is now follow this cable back up to where it starts. Now, this is output 36, and in the boards, and you may need to remove some components depending upon what's stacked in here, you'll have these boards labeled. Now, it may be a little hard to see there. You can see, for example, here we have output either 5, 21, or 37. And the reason there are three numbers there is because if this was board, the first board, it would be 5. If it was the second board, it would be 21. If it was the third board, which it is in this particular case, it is 37. So that's not the one we're after. We're actually after this one above that. So if we go here, we can see right here, if you look in there, you'll see that we have a 36. See right there? That is the cable that is 36. All right, well, let's just check that. What we'll do is we'll just pull on the wires, make sure that all the wires are properly attached, make sure that they're in the connections and that none of them are loose. They should all be fully seated. Now, your connection may be different. For example, you may have a board that looks like this. And in this particular case, here's output 36. You can see it right there. And in this case, we have green connectors right here. You want to check to make sure that the cables are fully seated into these. Give them, again, a good tug and check that they're working. Now, if you determine that all the wires are connected and everything is good, we can make one additional check here. We can actually... now, it is easier on the green plug version as opposed to the plug-in version. You can actually take these strings and switch them. Now, just like with the pixels, we did a kind of A-B swap. We swapped one with the good thing and one with the ungood thing. We didn't know if it's which one. You can actually unplug these. So, for example, if 38 was working and 36 is not working, just unplug the cable, plug it from 36 into 38 and swap them around. And again, what we're looking for is, does the problem follow the output or not? If the problem follows the output and is going over, then it's your output problem. I mean, it's your pixel problem. Or cable problem, actually, going forward, because we've already determined that the cable is, the pixels are fine in this particular case. Now, what's up next from there? The next thing in line is the fuses. Now, there are fuses on all of our boards, and they vary based on the board. Now, in this particular case, this board has individual blade fuses, and you can remove them like this and look at them and see, and it may be hard to see there, but you can actually see if the fuse is blown. But there's an easier way. Next to each one of these boards on the fuses is a red LED, so there should be one LED. So there's one right here. That's for number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on, all the way down through 16. You should see 16 lights all on here. Now, if your board does not have fuses and it has what are called polyfuses, see those yellow things? Those are not fuses you can replace. Those are self-resetting fuses. And they have an indicator down here at the bottom that will light up if they are blown. So normally these are okay, and you'll won't be able to physically check them. Look for the light that's down here in the bottom. On this kind of board, look for the red light next to the fuse. Again, no light should be off here. This light should be off unless one of the fuses is blown. All right, so that gets us through testing up to the board level. So in other words, we have now tested at this level here. We know we have power, we have the data is okay, and if the problem is continuing, we need to move up. See our next video on how to troubleshoot from this port all the way back into the controller.